Welcome, everyone, to the Energy Advisors podcast. I'm your host, Rex, that energy guy. Today, we're going to talk about policy at the federal level with great intention, but some poor consequences in renewable energy deployment here in the United States. But before we do that, I want to give a shout out to our friends at Valor Solar. Integrity matters. You know, anytime you're making an evaluation on green energy or any energy, or heck, just about any purchase, there's an education phase, there's a buying phase, there's an implementation, and there is long-term maintenance. There isn't anybody that I know that does a better job of deploying systems than our friends at Valor, because every step of the way is done in integrity. There are a lot of people taking shortcuts in the marketplace today and telling you things that aren't true, trying to bait and switch. These folks don't do it. So if you are in Colorado, Utah, Nevada, Idaho, and Arizona, get in touch with me. I'll connect you to our friends at Valor Solar. And the easy way to do that is go to energyadvisors.today, fill out the form, and we'll get you connected. All right, so let's talk about the situation here in the United States and what's happened with some unintended consequences. All right, so when the Inflation Reduction Act was passed and led by the Biden administration here in the United States, and again, we stayed down the middle of the road. I try to stay out of the politics. But what happened when that legislation was passed, there were $400 billion that were set aside to help homeowners deploy green technologies for energy. So solar, wind, heat pumps, etc. And the other thing that they did with that legislation was they extended the tax credits until 2032. Well, all of that's great. Everybody wants a cleaner world. Everyone wants cheaper energy. Everyone wants independence. And I believe in all of those things, because we have to switch the way we look at energy. And you know how I get on my soapbox about your energy plan, your personal energy plan. So the government, in one aspect, it did a great thing moving this forward. Now, that $400 billion ended up being funded by taxes on fossil fuels. Now, I'm not going to get into that today, but I'm going to tell you what happened as a consequence of the Inflation Reduction Act. So we all know, if we have any knowledge of economics, that the biggest contributor to inflation is actually government spending. When the market is flooded with too much money, inflation happens. And so just 2-3 years ago, we had an environment where interest rates across the board for mortgage rates were running at about 3%. And in fact, that's great. Just before that, I refinanced a home, got it in at 3% mortgage rate. Well, that was great. Well, when the Inflation Reduction Act came along, not only was the $400 billion set aside, there was lots of other government spending that took place. And in fact, it flooded the marketplace with too much money, and rates shot up. So interest rates went as high as 7.25%. Well, if I am deploying energy systems and I need to finance them, so did the interest rates for those technologies. Now, the good news is those are coming down. But the unintended consequences of that money flooding the marketplace is the interest rates went up so high that consumers could no longer make the financial justification to do solar or wind or heat pumps. So those are the ones that had the most expense. So it was a contradictory, juxtaposed situation where the intent of the legislation was to accelerate the adoption of green technologies, green energy technologies, but because of the inflation rate, it actually slowed it down. In some states like California, it crushed the marketplace because the cost of energy was so high, combined with the loss of net metering, and there's another episode about net metering in the podcast episodes, that the financial sense to go green with solar or these other technologies didn't really make sense financially. You know, at the end of the day, everybody has a budget. Money always matters. And if you can't afford a technology, you can't move forward with it. So what's happened in states like California, we've seen as high as a 25% loss of jobs in the state related to solar. We saw a drop in the adoption of that. And so it just decimated that. So the policy, while good intentions, had really bad consequences because the inflation rates went up so high, that the interest rates were so high, and it took solar out of the hands of basically the every average day person. And that's because to do it correctly and to make financial sense, it really has to be a bill swap or a near bill swap. So spend the money to finance your system, pay your loan on that, and not give it to the electric company. So it's an interesting battle out there. Unintended consequences. You have a administration and one side of the political aisle who is generally always the biggest champions of green energy, which is a good thing, but the unintended consequences of all the extra spending really slowed things down. Now, that doesn't mean solar didn't grow. Okay, solar grew over the last year. In fact, more solar was installed in 2023, and more heat pumps were installed in 2023 than any time before. But the market was not meeting the expected growth rates and what could have happened if interest rates stayed low. So I just wanted to point that out as you are looking at energy, making your decisions, and perhaps deploying your own energy plan. You need to keep an eye on this because, yes, interest rates are coming down and that's helping, but we need to support policies with our government agencies at the federal level and state level that will actually accelerate the adoption, not slow it down. So that's my spark of the day today. It was great ideas, good policy, poor implementation, and really poor consequences from that. But we hope that interest rates will come down in 24 and things will pick back up and we'll see more and more adoption of these technologies. So until next time, I always want to say, you want to pay attention to what's going on with energy. It's always going to be an issue going forward. And until next time, make it a great day.